Welcome to the JP8 Report. This is James. This is episode 15. Title of this one is No See, No Say. As of today in this recording, we're going to talk about transparency in the federal government, what's going on right now. Things have been going on in the last few days. As of this morning, I think it's been like 48 or 49 days since there's been any type of since the president took office. Normally, in this venture, when going back to President 41, which was George H.W. Bush, he had made his first speech to the joint session of Congress on the 9th of February 1989, and just to be aware, in the Constitution it talks about the State of the Union. Before we go there, I just forgot that. This is the JP8 Report. You can reach me at JP8Report@gmail.com, or leave a comment on the platform you see this podcast on. Please subscribe so you can get notified every time I publish a new podcast, whether it be Podbean or Rumble or YouTube or Facebook. But just get in there and like the page or subscribe to the page or to the actual broadcast, and you'll get it every time that we actually broadcast. So JP8 Report at gmail.com. I'm also on Parler, as you'll see at the very end of the podcast, at James Pierce JP80 is my Parler address. Going back to what we were talking about just a couple minutes ago with the Constitution. In Section 3, Article 2 of the United States Constitution, it just says, he shall from time to time give to the Congress information on the State of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such a time that he shall say proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other ministers, and shall take care of the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers of the United States, which means swearing them in. Okay. And on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses. So that would be the annual message is the State of the Union. Okay, and that's years 2, 3, and 4 of an administration. So what do you do when on your first State of the Union address? Well, technically it's not a State of the Union, it's just a joint session of Congress, and you just explain to the Congress and to the people of the United States your goals for your term. Okay, so going back to the Constitution, is Article 2, Section 3. So with the joint sessions, I was telling you about George H.W. Bush. When he took office in 1989, he gave his on February 9th, which was two weeks after his inauguration. Now, in retrospect of that, on that date, 9 February, you got to remember President Reagan was in office from 81 to 89. So you can look at it as a continuation of the Reagan era, but there's not much of a transition between the two, because he continued with the same policies as President Reagan. They're two different people. So, but Republican leadership. Okay. And then came President Clinton. President Clinton took office in 1993, and he held his joint session of Congress on the 17th of February, about a week later. Okay. That was a contentious election too, because Ross Perot was running for president, and he garnered, I believe, 19% of the vote. He didn't win any electoral votes, but the Reform Party got 19% of the vote. I believe it was that much. But that was enough to have him coming into office with 43% of the vote, which is very low. Okay, I think it was 43 to 48 to 19 or something like that. And then when George W. Bush, number 43, got elected, he had his first session on February 27th. Okay, which right now it's March 4th. And then 8 months later, 9 months later, 8 months later, we know what happened on September 11th. So his goals on the February 27th message, being a compassionate conservative, and everything changed on September 11th. Okay. I do believe he would probably been a one-term president. I'm glad he was a two-term president, but if it wasn't for the war, because the difference with Al Gore, John Kerry, and the Republicans, and contentious election, you think we're divided now? We were divided back then, so we've probably been swapping one-term presidents. And then so in 2009, when President Obama took office, his was on February 24th. I'm surprised that his was so far out because of the financial crisis that was affecting the United States at that time, when John McCain got defeated. I really think he should have been closer to the beginning of February to launch what his goals were to recover from the very high unemployment and the financial crisis that was happening in the United States. I can't answer for him, but I myself am pretty sure it should have been earlier than almost March. And then President Trump, when he took office in 2017, he had the latest of all the latest of all the modern presidents from George H.W. Bush. His was on the 28th of February. And I'd be, from just thinking about when he took office, the rhetoric that was going through, how they were slowing down all the nominations, which was delaying all legislation that was going through at the beginning of the administration. And, it probably just took time to be able to schedule a joint session out of that, because why would you want to hold your first major speech when you're trying to get stuff through the Senate? And they're busy working day in and day out with all these delays that were built in. It's like one vote every 18 hours because Democrats were standing up and saying, I want to delay this, I want to delay this. And so it took months and months and months to get all of his agenda through. Okay. So that's the deal with the joint session of Congress, which hasn't happened yet. I was reading in the news this morning that they're like right now talking at a minimum, maybe the middle of March, maybe later, before he has his first joint session of Congress. And that is because they said that they want to make sure his American rebuild plan is passed by the Senate before he has a joint session of Congress. Legislation takes time, and it's like a sausage factory. Everybody likes to eat, well, almost everybody likes to eat sausage, but they never want to see how it's made. So we can look at it like that, but you can't just arbitrarily say, well, I'm not going to speak to the nation. That's where I got my title. No see, no say. Okay? because what else is coming about is the Biden White House will not release any of the visitor logs to the press or to the public. They go along with that. They're virtual visitor logs from all the Zoom meetings and WebEx and whatever else they're doing virtually. They won't release any of those logs to the press or to the public. They question and answer sessions, and pretty much that loud, obnoxious voice of that lady every time the president signs an executive order. Okay, everybody, let's go. Everybody out, let's go. Come on. He's the president. Give him a chance to answer some questions. He is not having press conferences. He has not had a press availability in weeks at all. He's already signed like 4 dozen plus executive orders and executive actions, and there's no one explaining anything except for I'll circle back to that, Psaki. There's got to be accountability. They got to be able to actually give answers to what they're doing to our. They're changing the entire fabric, or attempting to change the entire fabric of our society, of our country, through executive fiat. This is crazy. There's nobody saying anything to anyone. There was a Zoom meeting yesterday with Democratic members of Congress, or Democratic Party members, with President Biden. At the very end of it, he said, "Hey, does anyone have any questions? Am I supposed?" And then it went blank. They terminated the broadcast with the president. So, look, back when I was in the Army, I did some of that work for President Bush's White House. You never, ever cut off the President of the United States. Ever. Okay? I don't know what's going on, what they're hiding, but he's not answering questions. He makes general statements. He needs to come before the American public without a teleprompter and take accountability of what's going on. Okay? In regards to what he said yesterday also, he called my governor, Greg Abbott, okay, here in Texas, a Neanderthal. He called his lifting the mask mandate in Texas, Neanderthal thinking. As we were like breaking his federal mask challenge, here in Texas, we have about 42,000 deaths from coronavirus. We've done our share. We've had our share of pain. We've sacrificed. Back in March, we started out with 15 days to bend the curve, and then it became 30 more days, and it just kept stretching onward. And then Governor Abbott, he took so much political heat because he said, we're doing a mask mandate. Texas has been under a mask mandate for months and months and months. Businesses were shut down. They were curbside deliveries. You can't even drive in Copper's Cove with barely even finding a place to be able to sit down and eat because it's everyone's afraid to open up. One of our local restaurants they're fully open. They're 75% open. Next week we get to be fully 100%. But they were like the only one for months that would ever invite people to be able to come in and eat. People are tired of the mandates. They're tired of not being able to go and enjoy themselves. Movie theaters open 3 days a week. Where do you go bowling? Where do you go fishing at? You can't even go to a concert, and everyone's scared to death even though we're all wearing masks. Uh, People just are burned out and want to get back to their life, and they just can't take it no more. On Texas Independence Day, Governor Abbott felt it was the right time to say the mask mandate is up. We've sacrificed. Now we have to get back to our lives and do things that matter and recover our state, which he made the right decision. Okay, my daughter yesterday told me maybe you should have done it all on the same day. I was telling her he's probably trying to give people a heads up to get prepared for to be able to open fully. But calling us Neanderthal thinking individuals because we want freedom in our country. Last time I checked, I'll flip to it. Into the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Okay, Amendment number 10. Okay, it says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The restrictions to our state are the responsibility of our governor, not the President of the United States. This is the state of Texas. Okay. If he wants to run Texas, he should move from Delaware and move to Texas and run for governor. That's what Governor Abbott is our governor. He's been there for, I believe, 8 years now. He's done a great job. He's not perfect, but it is his decision and our state legislature what happens in our state under things that aren't covered by the United States Constitution. States' rights is not his responsibility or any authority to tell us that we have to wear masks or close down our businesses. So we can take care of our own people, leave Texas alone. Other things that's going on that I'm going to be doing other podcasts about is I'll talk more about the filibuster and this House resolution HR 1 about tearing up our entire electoral system, gun rights, campaign finance. When they instituted that filibuster in the Senate back when the nation was formed, they did it for a reason. I ain't saying there's nothing wrong with Democrats being in charge of the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, because it happens with Republicans. Republicans do the House, the Senate, and the White House too. But to protect the minority of the United States that's not in power, that's why you have the 60 vote threshold in the United States Senate to prevent the majority party from running over the citizens of the United States. Okay, that is why we should never ever get rid of it. You know what? If you don't like it, build a compromise, or get 60 United States senators in there, and you do whatever you want. Okay, or you might need 62 because not everyone's going to be on the same sheet of music. So that's why the filibuster is very important, so they don't shred our Constitution or just ignore it or do whatever they want. Half the stuff that I've seen in there is not even constitutional. So why would some crazy congresswoman named Presley, she's a member of the squad, advocated lowering the federal voting age at 16 years old, a high school student that's probably barely even taken government or U.S. history in high school. They give them the right to vote. How? How do you do that? How do you do that by congressional measures? Every single time when all men were eligible to vote with the constitutional amendment, when all women were granted the right to vote was a constitutional amendment. When the voting age was reduced from 21 to 18, it was a constitutional amendment. Where do you get trying to say, hey, let's just lower it by congressional bill? You can't do that. Okay. Her vote passed among Democrats. And, they do the party vote, right? It passed 125 to 93. Okay. And then when it went before the House, it failed 302 to 125. So those 93 Democrats that voted against it joined all the Republicans that voted against it, and it measure failed. But why would 125 Democrats in our country think it was wise to give 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds the right to vote when they're not even thinking about civics at that point? Okay, and our minds are developing. We're still learning. Half the time, even in my house, I try to teach them the conservative value things. By the time they turn 18, they could be thinking about liberal subjects or conservative subjects. But that's when they're 18, not 16 years old. They want, where's another one? They want to institute an ethics requirement for Supreme Court justices. Okay, and what was the other one? They want to take the Federal Elections Commission, the group of people to ensure candidates for office and office holders legally and ethically run for office and file reports and don't do illegal fundraisings. And they want to make it, instead of bipartisan, equal number of Republicans, equal number of Democrats on the commission. Now they want to put a Democrat one additional seat on there, so the party in charge can have override authority. That's not bipartisan. That's where the party in power can dictate to you, like, oh, you're wrong. This is why you're wrong. Oh, it doesn't matter what's written here. You're still wrong. Screw this. Take our country back. This is unbelievable. This stuff has got to stop. You go to the ballot box. You get these people out of office, and you get our country back the way it's supposed to be. Okay? We have rights in this country. And our right is to live freely, not to be under a dictatorship or a monarchy. We fought a war like that over 200 years ago. This is not a monarchy. This is a federal republic. This is our states, and that's the federal government. Their job is to represent us and protect us. That's all. Okay? They want to play this crazy game of ripping all of our rights from us. All they're doing is alienating people. You know what? Nancy Pelosi, I think she's 80 years old. I don't understand why she's even in the House of Representatives. The way her and her progressive allies are going right now, you think we're within striking distance of regaining the House of Representatives to be under Republican control. You mess around, you may lose 100 seats. Okay? The Democrats are playing with fire. And you really want to see what happens? What happens if there's a real revolution in our country at the ballot box, and we get more than 75% of each house, right? And we can write our own bills, and the president can veto them, and they'll still become law because we'll have override authority. Try that one on, okay? Try that one on for size and see what happens, okay? We're probably going to take up 4 or 5 Senate seats in next November, which would be great. That would take us up to 54 or 55. That takes us within striking distance of 60. The time is coming. You think it's all fun and games now? Across our country, and the voters will tell you what you're doing wrong, because you'll be sitting on the sidelines while the Republican Party is putting our country back together so people can freely live without paying outrageous taxes or have outrageous regulations over their lives, so they can actually do what they want to support their families and have a good quality of life without being bankrupt. So that's my rant for the day. How long have I been on there? I've been on there on 26 minutes. Okay, so before I go to my next slide, so you can see me. There's my parlor address, James Pierce JP8. That's my page on Facebook, JP8 Report, and you can find me on Parlor, Facebook. You can find me on Podbean. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble. I'm out there. Watch me, subscribe to me, and share me out to your friends, especially the conservative people out there, so we can actually spread the word and take care of our country and build it back. Okay. I will talk to y'all later. Thank you for watching episode 15 of the JP8 Report.